Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Backlot Banter movie review. My name is Tucker Hazel. It is the holiday season. You know what that means. I am joined by my co-host with a brain of an infant child, Sam Meltzer. Today, we're here to talk about Poor Things, the long-awaited Yorgos Lanthimos extravaganza. But of course, if you want to talk to us about this movie or its Oscars chances, the awards season, other awardsy movies, we've got reviews of a couple, and we've got plenty more coming up. Sam will be joining for quite a few of those because it's the holiday season. Tanner's out traversing around the world, so Sam and I are here to hold down the fort. But we get to talk about Poor Things, which, Sam, I believe is one of your favorite movies of the year. Let me know your thoughts on it.
It's my second favorite movie of the year. I've seen it three
That's pretty
times. I saw it
close.
twice at the New York Film Festival, and I saw it last week with Emma Stone there to give, a Q&A afterwards with Yorgos, and it was
Cool.
awesome. So yeah, I've seen it three times. That should let you know how I feel about the movie. It's obviously incredible. It has a lot of hype for a reason. Yorgos is one of the best modern filmmakers. I think he has such a vision every time he makes a movie. And
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that to sit through them is particularly challenging, but he definitely challenges a perception of the regulatory practices and
Yeah.
deconstructs hegemonic powers and fundamentally disagrees with capitalist systems in a really unique way through visual extravaganza and just some of the most wonky and perfectly crafted characters you've seen in years. And that is no exception with this film, as Bella Baxter is probably the most interesting character we've had this year. I think she's
Yeah.
so much, but so,
She's the best character since Lydia Tarr.
yeah, kind of. And she's so just, you feel so close to her. She's so relatable and real and just so unbelievably and unapologetically herself. And we
Yeah.
should all aspire to feel the little amount of shame that she does because she kind of deconstructs why do we feel anxious? Why do we have social anxiety?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
we care so much? And just does whatever she wants, whenever she wants. And everyone around her is kind of under her power in a way because of that
Mm-hmm.
brutal honesty and that fulfillment. You
Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
what you want. And I don't know. I love her so much for that. I think she's just so awesome.
Yeah, Bella is going to be probably the thing we focus on most here because not only do the basically every other character relates to her in some way, the themes are like centered around her character progression and the way that she sees the world and the way that she grows. But I totally agree. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. I expected it to be that because I've always, for a long time, I've been a Yorgos Lanthimos fan. I reviewed The Lobster, one of my first kind of not like superhero movies that I reviewed on YouTube back in like 2019. So it's been a while that I've been watching his movies and appreciating them. But Poor Things, I think, is my favorite because it leans into something that I really appreciate is using whimsy and artifice and crass humor and ridiculous ideas to present incredibly human and thought-provoking themes. It tackles sociology and sexuality and relationship building and just like intelligence and development in such acute ways, specifically because it allows itself to be ridiculous. The idea is ridiculous at face value. It allows itself to go over the top and have extreme nudity and sex and profanity and ridiculousness that but still maintains that human emotional thematic core all the way through. And that to me, that's what I go to my favorite movies for, is something spectacular and ridiculous that I can't see just by looking out my window because we have production design and costume design and actors portraying crazy characters. But I want there always to be an idea that I can learn from, that I can take home, think about, and keep it in the back of my mind as something that like genuinely impacted me. And Poor Things is that complete package for me. And it's very filmically interesting, and it seems like it's gonna be up for all sorts of awards. So, I mean, this is kind of my everything ever all at once this year
Yeah.
in terms of leaning into crazy ridiculous concepts, but at the core is maybe the most human story of the year.
It's so, so much fun. And even though I think that in the third act there's a dipping point where I wasn't as
Oh
interested,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everything that happened there, it didn't need to happen. Like, I get why it's there. It makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
But for
Well,
some
let's
reason,
talk about that because we're going spoiler mode. The point that you're talking about, I think, is when Bella goes home with the person who was her husband before
Yeah,
she
and
passed
at
away.
that point, I got what it was doing. I just didn't like those scenes, but I
Yeah.
do think they needed to be there.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that as well because I remember being like, okay, are we really doing this now? Like 15 minutes before the end of the movie. But I do think you're right. Thematically, it makes sense, and I think it leads to the ending being a little bit more cohesive because that is a plot thread that needed to be resolved. The idea that Bella had a previous life as Victoria, I believe her name is, before she passed away, and that is something that's sort of teased a couple times throughout the film, and so you gotta have some tie back to that. And the way that that allows her to sort of reconcile with her past a little bit, we learn a little bit more about the person that she was before she passed away. All of these are questions I wanted answered. It just felt like such a hard shift
Mm.
at the end to be like, okay, we're gonna cover this now. It wasn't layered throughout the rest of the script like so many of the other themes and concepts were. It was just a quick turn, like literally Bella just makes a decision, okay, I'm going with him. And that's a little bit of a strange moment. I'm not sure how I like actually leading into that section of the film, but it also by the end of the film allows her a much better sense of purpose and self and understanding, and us as viewers to know the progression of her and this world and these characters a lot better because it's included. So even though I it is like my least favorite section of the movie because it's the least cohesive with the rest of the film, it does make sense thematically and character wise for Bella.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that everything else about the movie is so extremely good. The highs are so high
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
when there's that part that's just kind of like, okay, fine, it feels
Yeah.
worse
Yeah.
than it is because we're so
Sure.
used
Yeah.
to it being so exceptional. But
Hmm.
the ending makes up for it. Just that final 3 seconds makes up for it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to complain about. I also don't like Christopher Abbott's performance. Like, I did not like what he was doing at all.
Christopher Abbott. Who? Which
He's the
character did he play?
ex-husband.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He was
I
okay,
didn't
but
like his
I
performance.
agree. um, the one problem that I have with the film, and this is just a very minor thing, but it kind of just like stuck with me throughout the film, is the over reliance on a fisheye lens gets a little. It's a little much. It's a
I liked
little
it.
bit
I thought
much.
that it worked. I liked the
I like it in a small amount,
No, I
but
like that it's
this
there a
much.
lot. I thought it was so like expressionistic. It felt
Sure. Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
a German artwork from the early 20th century. So I
Well, actually, I was relating this film in its opening sections of God creating Bella and of when she's first leaving the house and we're seeing all these crazy streets to a German expressionist film. It feels like the modern Caligari or Nosferatu or the Golem or something like that in a way that movies don't take inspiration
no.
from those films anymore aesthetically. And the fact that especially something that harkens back to like early silent films is the use of black and white in color in some areas, but also like irising. There's lots of like deep shadows and aesthetically from a film like a what's the word I'm looking for? The shot composition, the lighting, these things are reminiscent of a bygone era of film, but that makes it so distinct for today. And that combines, I think, with expressionistic production design and costume design that I think are another one of the maybe greatest usages of those techs I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So talk a little about those.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Yorgos as a director is one of the best auteurs working today because of that. Like he pays homage to these movements of art that are old
Sure.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
still kind of can hold up if you do it the right way. And because
Mm-hmm.
he synthesizes all of this, he, is able to pay homage and have you reminisce, but also make it so entirely his own. And the production design and costume design are really a part of that. I love the set of the brothel. I think that's one of the coolest
Mm.
and most decorative sets I've seen in a really long time. The entire house where God lives is
Yep. Yep.
so memorable and distinct. I
Absolutely.
mean, there's just so much happening, but
Yes.
it's all retainable. I mean, even the use of visual effects, kind of that like purposeful exaggeration that's meant to
Mm-hmm.
look fake, but also have this really epic and like gloomy, big, larger than life feel worked very well for this expressionistic style. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the humor as well. There is a very intense, biting, really over the top sense of humor in the film, but it never is annoying. it's always really like bombastic and hilarious.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And just Bella's deliveries are so good.
Yeah.
She can make any line of dialogue sound funny, but when she says something out of pocket, which is quite often,
Yeah.
it's
Of course.
really like one of the most memorable things in the world because she just everything she says is so real. It's she
Yeah.
says what
Yeah.
you're
There.
thinking.
There again, there's a mix of honesty with surrealism in this film that I think is very, very special. And I quickly want to touch on two of the elements that you just mentioned, which were the set design, which I think is at its best for me in God's house slash laboratory. All that there's like this very distinct visual choice they made to have ceilings be like made of blankets almost, or at least they are they're plaster or whatever, but they have like fabricy waves in the ceilings, and everything has all the walls have these very rigid vertical line patterns on them, and the chairs that they're sitting in, everything has this sort of looming artistic presence that again is very reminiscent of art deco and surrealism and a German expressionist visual style that it just there's nothing like it. And so when Bella's wandering the halls of this place, and the camera is pointing down from like a toe's eye view to the ceiling, and you're getting these weird ceilings and tall walls and weird shadows and clocks that are shaped the wrong way. And it's just there's such an attention to detail in that, and it combines very, very well with the visual effects, which I think are some of the best use of visual effects that I've seen this year. From changing the way that the sky is sort of almost a nebula of purples and oranges and blues in a way that isn't realistic to, and the cloud patterns that aren't realistic to the way that we see the world outside, but allow for this surrealism to creep into every single corner of the frame. And also, there are funny little duck dogs and dog ducks and goose goats and all this nonsense that I'm like, those they look phenomenal. I mean, they are like flawlessly CGI'd, but also it's just those little touches that show that that Yorgos Lanthimos and his production team are taking it the next step of creativity. They're like, okay, yeah, it's a Frankenstein guy. He's putting a baby in a woman's body, yada yada yada. That we all know that at the beginning point. But this guy has these little creatures that just wander around his house, and I'm like, that's perfect. It endears me to this world. I think they're so creatively designed and well realized that I'm just like, I'm in when I see that they took that next step that was totally unnecessary. We wouldn't feel like, oh, where are the weird chimera creatures if they weren't there? But because they are there, it shows that they really, really cared to take that next step.
Yeah, this is probably the movie with the most personality that I've seen all year.
Ooh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just so like I don't think this movie is going to be forgotten, especially
Mm-hmm.
in the indie.
It'd be very hard to.
It's very hard to forget it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, should we talk about Miss Stone and how this is like I
Yes,
feel like
absolutely.
I've been watching her career until now. Like I've been waiting for
Mm-hmm.
her to explode and she finally did. This is the best performance she's ever given. I think that I've never seen her this bold and extreme and honest. And
I don't think I've seen almost any performance this
yeah,
bold
I
and
mean,
extreme and
I don't
honest.
know how she can top it. I mean, I hope she does. It's just so
Yeah.
incredible what she pulls off here. She really has you rooting for Bella by the end of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you just are entranced by every single decision she makes and every line of dialogue she says. And that's all because of Emma
Yeah.
Stone.
Yeah, the thing that really endears me to not only Emma Stone's performance, but Bella Baxter as a character that I really end up loving, especially by the end of the film, is that progression. The idea that Emma Stone's performance has to cover like 5 different steps of how much intelligence and how much understanding of the world Bella has received, from her motor skills to her vocabulary to her social interactions, the sort of life and intelligence that's behind her eyes when she's speaking, it changes very starkly from the beginning to the end. And I do have to say that it wasn't until about halfway through the movie that I really was grabbed by it, because I think her performance is very good as Bella when she's ostensibly a child, an infant. She doesn't understand what's going on. She's throwing things. She's like just like mumbling and screaming, and that like of course she's nailing that. But I was like, this is a little extreme for me, and it's like being sold as such a crazy thing that like I wasn't sure how much I bought into it. But I think what really works is watching that disappear, watching her show up in situations where she learns something and takes from that for the next scene, to where, okay, suddenly her motor skills are a little bit better. Suddenly she remembers a few extra words. She understands how this thing works, how that thing works, how to communicate with someone else. And the way that it portrays her growth and intelligence changing over the course of the film is a perfect encapsulation of like just the themes of learning and the way that we as people take for granted the learning process, but seeing it so sped up before your eyes as Bella Baxter goes over the course of 2 hours from a babbling baby to a well-spoken, world-traveled, and almost kind of jaded person, that is like a phenomenal example of acting pushed to its limits, of character writing pushed to its limits, because it's just a character arc like stretched out. It's the tallest character arc you've ever seen, because she's got to go from being a baby to being a full-grown adult within the body and performance of one person. We don't get, oh, child Emma Stone is portraying baby version of Bella. No, it's Emma Stone, Emma Stone, Emma Stone, Emma Stone. And it's such a confluence of writing and performance and Yorgos' direction to tell her when to push it and be extreme, that continues to sell itself better and better and better and cohere with the themes better and better and better as the film goes on.
Yeah, I also want to say that they never tell us the gender of the baby. This is something that Trevor mentioned.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it's really smart because
Yeah.
it really defies gender as a construct. There's a very trans reading of this movie, too.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It's very much about exploring a new way of life and a rebirth. So naturally, not knowing the gender of the baby sort of defies like regulatory practices. I think that
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that me and a lot of people, when they see someone, is what is their gender. That's
Mm-hmm.
such an easy thing to identify because we've internalized those concepts and constructs so fiercely. And as much as I want to live in a world where there isn't a set idea of what anyone looks like, unfortunately, that is how we function. That's how we
Yeah.
process when we see someone for the first
Yeah.
time. And this movie, like, fundamentally says why and
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
that. And it really kind of changes up how we view a person and the development of someone and the way we identify someone in a way I've
Yeah.
never seen in film. So for that, I think it's one of the best movies of the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, I mean, the themes of social interaction, and as I said earlier, sociology, I think are done better here than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because this movie is at its very core level about people that are trying to communicate with one another. Whether that is they can't understand each other because of a class difference, or because of a philosophical difference, or because of an intelligence difference, or an age difference, or whatever it is, it's about overcoming those barriers and learning to understand people in the way that they think. And again, it works so well because none of these people act like normal people. I think Rami Youssef's character is the only person that like kind of actually seems like he could be a guy I could meet, but everyone else is so extreme, and the dialogue that they're delivering and the way that they approach the world is so extreme, but you still get to understand them on a personal level. I mean, Willem Dafoe's character is tortured as a child and tortures other people and has this incredibly like analytical and fucked up way of thinking about things, but as he's like delivering a speech by the end of the movie on his deathbed, you are like, I understand this man on a fundamental human level. And that is because Yorgos Lanthimos and his writing team understand the ideas that they're going for so well here that through all this ridiculousness, you're able to bypass that and just feel the core emotions. And I think that it allows a very bare and honest exploration of something like philosophy. On when she's on the boat, talking to the people that she just met on the boat, that is a whole section that's basically just about philosophy and how should we approach the world and do we have the power to change things. And Bella's like trying to come to grips with that, and then you are forced to, as you're relating to Bella Baxter, think about your own way of seeing things. And then as she arrives and has to work in the brothel, it's like, how do you have to wrestle with femininity and sexuality and the way that we treat other people, and like there's so many different things that this movie tackles in each of its different chapters that because Bella is learning about them, you are pushed to learn about them and reconsider your own view on them yourself. And that is a feat of writing.
Yeah. It so should win best screenplay. I mean, come on. I don't know
I would like that. Yes.
I don't know what else to say. You kind of captured everything there. It's such a like extravagant, amazing time.
Hmm.
And I
We got supporting performances. You want to cover those?
yeah, I
Like,
mean
what are your
Defoe
favorite supporting
surprised me.
performances?
I thought he was really sweet. It wasn't at the end because usually he plays like evil scientist. He wasn't really evil scientist. It was
No,
actually
no.
different. I love Mark Ruffalo. Obviously, he's really attractive. So a lot of those scenes were really
So
fun.
funny.
And he is so fucking funny in this movie. Every time he slams his head down on a table, it kind of startled me because it sounded so painful. He's so comedically like on top of it. He's so ridiculously in character the entire time.
Yeah, yeah.
So memorable. I
Well,
actually
here's
like
the interesting thing about his character is he is very extreme, and like I'd say like 80% of the time he's like turning it to 12, and he's just like such a strange guy. But there also is a reading of this character that is there's a mix between what is a front for him, like how is he portraying himself, is he pushing it up so he seems more extreme and cool to Bella Baxter because she's an extreme person, because when he's in other social scenarios he really tones it down and you can see him getting embarrassed in interesting ways. And so like I don't know, I don't know who he is. I think he's the one like true enigma of a character of like he is such a strange person that has so many different walls built up for his personality that I can't quite gauge in, but it keeps him constantly engaging and also cranks up that comedy level because you don't know in any scene to scene if he's going to say something ridiculous and make a funny face or if he's going to be like kind of humble about it and like embarrassed about the way that Bella is acting. He walks this like really curvy line in an interesting way.
hmm. Yeah, I found him to be a kind of fuck boy who was really confident but
Yeah.
deeply insecure at the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And just someone who's very pretentious and arrogant.
Yeah.
And I liked Gerard Carmichael's character. A lot of people really didn't like his performance. I
Really?
actually liked
Oh.
it because I thought that he was like purposefully offbeat. His character was
Mm-hmm.
meant to be kind of deadpan and serious and like not really fit in, and I thought it
Mm-hmm.
worked.
Yeah. Now, there's one other thing to talk about before we wrap this up, which is the awards potential of Poor
Oh yeah,
Things, because it seems that it might be at some level potential in basically every fucking category you can throw at it, and I love that.
yeah. It's
In
gonna ready. I'll count. It's gonna get Best Picture, Director, Actress, maybe two supporting actor,
yeah,
screenplay,
one or two.
editing, cinematography, score, production design, costume design, maybe sound, makeup, and visual effects. It could
It
get
could all of that, yeah, and that's I mean that's like basically everything but foreign film and short and the
and
other
like lead
screenplay and like
actor.
yeah, yeah. But this could end up being one of the most nominated
It
films,
will
even
be.
if it doesn't necessarily win in all those categories. I think that it will be. I think it'll be one of the most nominated of the night, and that's just because what I talked about at the beginning of this being a very cohesive film is that there's no area of this film that I think is subpar to the other qualities that it has. When you talk about the writing or the performances or the production design or the costume design or the lighting or the cinematography, it's like or the score, they're all the same level of unique. They're all the same level of quality and different from things I've seen otherwise this year. And so while we go into the Oscars usually with a couple of films where it's like, okay, it'll be nominated for a few things because it's really strong in these categories, and it would be a great winner. There's these other films in these categories. This is a film where I could feel confident giving it the win in almost every single category of the night. And it wouldn't be a shock. Like, if it won score, I'd be like, well, that's fucking crazy. Score, I think, is one of the ones I'm, like, least likely that I'll be nominated for because it's such a weird fucking score. It's so
Definitely
strange.
getting nominated.
Um, but I'd be like, score, that's a great winner. It's very distinct. It's pushing the boundaries of what a musical score can be in a film. Costume design, production design, perfect, perfect. Oh, Emma Stone winning? Yeah, of course that makes sense. Oh, supporting actor winning? Oh, Yorgos Lanthimos? Of course. Screenplay? Of course. It's like, it's a no-brainer in like every
Everything
category
about it
of the
is
night.
so excellent.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so good. So good.
Now, Sam, do you want to give a score to Poor Things?
I don't know if I can give it a 10 just because there is that one part that irks me, but
Sure.
so
Yeah,
very
yeah.
high 9.
Okay, very high 9. You like 9.5, 9.6, something like that.
Oh, I don't do that.
You don't? Okay, well, I'm gonna say 9.5 because we do decimals here in
Okay,
order
I
to have
guess
it
so. Then
reflected.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go the same. I think 9.5, 9.6. This is one of my favorite movies of the year.
difference
Uh, So it does. I mean, it ultimately doesn't matter, but like
between a
it's
9.5 and a
consistency.
9.6.
I like it a little more than you is what I'm saying.
Oh,
No, but it's a film that I can see giving a 10 soon. I enjoyed it so much and I reflected so much on it over the course of the last day that I think that I will understand it a lot better on a second watch through. And things like Bella's performance at the beginning not quite hitting with me, or one thing I also was like kind of iffy on was the black and white at the beginning. I was like, I really can't wait for it to get to color. I think a lot of these things that I had an issue with on a first watch will be resolved now that I better understand the film, know where it ends, understand the thorough vision of Yorgos, and I'll probably be watching it again and reviewing it on Quest because it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. And it just fits into this perfect slot that like a lot of my favorite movies do of Shape of Water and Everything Everywhere and these fantasy, ridiculous, modern masterpieces that infuse surrealism with a modern sensibility of understanding of the world. And I'm like, you're speaking to my heart here. And also there's funny little creatures and crazy characters and funny buildings. Like Yorgos, this is Yorgos Lanthimos' masterpiece, and I hope that he continues down the same route of extreme surrealism in the future, because there have been touches of it in previous movies, but it's never been like this. And I really hope he just continues to build on this and hone that craft, because it's like basically perfect already, but I'm sure he's got other ideas to explore.
I still think The Favorite is my favorite,
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
but it's close.
Yeah.
It's really close.
But you will have time to reflect on this as it continues to be brought up in all the awards conversations, and we'll see what it wins, and then he's got another movie coming out next year, which is crazy, and I can't wait for that. But thank you everyone for listening to our review of Poor Things. We kind of touched on basically every part of this movie, and again, one of my favorites of the year. Thank you very much for joining me, Sam. We will see you guys in the future for more of these awards coverage and awards film reviews.